Hey, Susan, how you doing? So one of the things you're going to notice is that as we develop this linear narrative is one of the problems you're going to approach is how do I set this up in a really interesting way? So developing the idea is only part of developing a really super engaging and interesting linear narrative illustratively, right? So what we have to do is we have to think a little bit further. We have to use a little bit of foresight here in developing and I say this because I want you to start thinking about this when you decide which direction to move forward in. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the development of the linear narrative. So you really have to, I mean, in order to display a high degree of success in this assignment, it's all in the setup. How do we define the problem? So in other words, the problem here in Cut the Cake is presumably that there's a birthday cake, candles ready to roll, but there's nothing to cut it with. So in this particular case, I can certainly see this. So there's a lady and some kids sitting around a table, right? And they have the birthday cake, and maybe one has a birthday hat on. And all of a sudden, the lady just gets this perplexed look on her face, and because she doesn't have a knife, right? So then she starts thinking and thinking, what can I use? What can I use? And all of a sudden, light bulb, the aha moment. So she grabs the dental floss and cuts the cake with the dental floss. So in that little example, it's just all in the setup, right? It's all in the setup. And that's what's going to create the visual engagement here and really get the viewer to the point where they're looking at this linear illustrative narrative and saying, wow, that's really cool. Kind of like this example right here. I mean, I'm sure you looked at this and went, wow, that's really cool. I know I did the first time I saw it. Same thing with this one. So the reason these are so successful is I'm going to say it's all right here in the first few frames where it's defining the problem, okay? So this one clearly defines the problem as she's not going to be kissing on him because of that scraggly beard, right? So that's the problem, the setup. Now he's going to thinking of the solution, right? Tries this, doesn't work. Thinking of more solutions, comes up with the aha moment. Now it's implementation, setup, and then epilogue or the final outcome, right? So this is set up beautifully. Nope, there's not one frame that isn't directly connected with the frame before it and the frame after it. So it's a wonderful narrative. We can see the same thing here. These examples are, I don't think are quite as effective as the color examples. Nonetheless, be sure to take a look at those. Now, the reason I bring this up, and of course I'm going to mention that this is a great assignment for you and for all students to take a look at as many video critiques for these sketches as possible, because you'll be able to get some ideas based on comments and reactions. But at this point, I'm going to say just go ahead and take a look at all of these, rethink all of these. How am I going to set this up? Right? And you'll find out just based on that little example I gave you, you're going to find things that may not necessarily work in terms of the way you're picturing this in your mind. Look, how do I visually represent a problem using illustration? No words, right? And that to me is the crux of this assignment. And to a high degree, I think that's going to define the success of this assignment is the preliminary work in the setup of the narrative. Really important. In this particular case, I think it's just as important as the illustrative technique, because as this piece sits in your student portfolio, right? You're going to have viewers looking at this. And if this doesn't make sense, the viewer is, let's say it's a potential hiring professional. And let's say you've got this linear narrative and it just doesn't make sense. And I've seen them that don't make sense, that you kind of need an explanation. And that's not good, right? So, and that will come through in a student portfolio. When somebody's looking at the piece, they're going to tell whether it makes sense or not. So I think it's really, really important. The setup in this assignment, I think, it's every bit as important as execution. So really think about the potential of each of these in terms of setting up the problem, defining the problem, implementing the solution, and developing the final outcome where seemingly all is well, right? All right, that said, I think this has huge, huge potential. Cut the Cake. I think the rest really are excellent. They're great ideas, and I think each one of them will work. I think some are more effective than others in in the potential of being able to define a problem visually, right? So think about that and go ahead and make your decision. You decide based on the criteria that I just mentioned. Go ahead and make a decision and think about what has the most potential, not only in terms of an opportunity to provide engaging illustrations, but also in the opportunity to present a compelling linear narrative and with all of the definitive aspects of storytelling. Okay. All right. Great start so far. And again, just go through these, each one, think about it, take a night, sleep on it, think about each one. How are you going to set these up? Before long, you're going to start eliminating possibilities and you're going to be left with one where you're just going to say, hey, I know exactly how I want to set this up. All right. Okay. Great job. Any questions, comments, concerns, and of course, clarifications? Just let me know and I'll be glad to comment as such. All right. Great job, Susan. Thank you very much.